Howdy, everybody. Thanks for joining me today for another episode of Stranger Things from the Sky. This is an article from 1920 titled Strange Things Drop from Sky. I don't know. I just felt like doing this one because it's a weird one. Charles Fort, who's one of my favorite authors, this article kind of quotes from his material essentially. And this is an interesting book of his. It's actually incredibly hard to find, um, called The Book of the Damned. We'll take a little glossary look over it, and depending on how you guys react to the video and the comments, I might just do a full episode on this, The Book of the Damned. Perhaps we do a whole Charles Fort series, but stacking the deck against myself as I always do, for time is of the essence. I have very little free time as it is. Let's jump right into the article. And again, thank you for joining me today. Again, strange things drop from sky. The Bamberg Herald, South Carolina, 1920. Science says nothing comes down that has not gone up, but author of weird book opines that Earth has been bombarded for centuries with planetary messages. Simultaneously with the announcement by Marconi, the wizard of wireless, that mysterious, undecipherable signals, which come from somewhere outside the Earth, have been noted at wireless stations at intervals both before and since the war, comes from the press of a New York publishing house, a strange book, a sort of an aerolite in the biographical world, containing a remarkable assemblage of authenticated data of unexplained things that have happened on this earth, not physical, but real physical phenomenon, marvelous things that science has either sidestepped or but lamely accounted for, and that seem to point to the possibility that other worlds have been not merely trying to signal us, but literally to bombard us with communications of one sort or another. The author of the book, Charles Fort, who has traveled 30,000 miles and ransacked the scientific reports, magazines, and journals of the world for his data, does not undertake to prove this theory of conscious or unconscious interplanetary communication. From the very nature of the phenomena, he says, nothing can be proved. In fact, nothing in the world is susceptible of absolute and final proof. That's a side I always love to stick with as well. His book is a cento of mysterious and amazing facts that science has not been able to classify or explain in a satisfactory manner, and so it has simply set them aside as freaks of nature, relegated them to the scientific purgatories, hence the weird title under which the volume has been launched, The Book of the Damned. Startling missiles. Startling things have come down out of the skies upon the earth, deluges of blood, curiously carved stones, hatches, globular and pyramidal projectives, living animals, huge chunks of ice, strange showers of animal matter, frogs, fish, snails, gelatinous matter of seemingly subterrestrial origin, curious nebular structures as of venturing voyagers from other planets, have been seen hovering in the far atmospheric spaces. These and 1,000 other things that have at one time and another been set forth in more or less scientific records as strange phenomena of nature and then forgotten, have been marshaled and correlated by Mr. Fort, to whom they suggest many wonderful conjectures. For instance, is there somewhere up in the interstellar spaces a super Sargasso Sea of cosmic debris into which we crash occasionally and pick up some fragments? Have some of the bold crusaders of other planets penetrated our atmospheric limits and been turned back for some reason or another? Have they occasionally hurled down a few things at us to let us know how near they were? Have there been great aerial battles fought up there between planetary air sailing armies that have at times drizzled their blood fragments upon the earth? Science, dogmatic science, of course, says not. Whatever comes down on this earth anywhere must have gone up from it somewhere else. But this up and down theory does not always explain, and the facts adduced in this wonderful book, as Theodore Dreiser calls it, gives a wide field for curious conjecture. For all of the facts given, the author cites his authority, volume, date, and page, and for the most part, they are taken from scientific publications. Red sunsets, blue moons. To demonstrate the scientific method of explanation, take, for instance, those red sunsets and blue moons that occurred in 1883 and for several years afterwards. 492 pages of a report of the Royal Society were given to demonstrate that they were caused by the eruption of the volcano Katoa in the Straits of Sunda, which occurred August 28, 1883. But the red sunsets and blue moons occurred 7 years after that, and within that 7 years, there was an interval of several years in which they disappeared. What became of the volcanic dust in those years? And then the annual register and knowledge are quoted to show that the same atmospheric effects were seen in the Trinidad a short time before the eruption and in Natal, South Africa, as long as 6 months before Krakatoa blew its head off. Numerous instances are given of the vast falls of yellow substances upon the earth of an apparently extra mundane character. The scientists said they were snows colored with pollen. Nevertheless, the Monthly Weather Review, May 1877, reported a golden yellow fall of February 27, 1877, at Peclow, Germany, in which four kinds of organisms, not pollen, were the coloring matter. Minute things shaped like arrows, coffee beans, horns, and discs. Might they not have been symbols, hieroglyphs, shattered from their original shapes by the Earth's atmospheric pressures? M. Bouls, a French scientist, tells of a substance, reddish yellow, that fell in quantities amounting to hundreds of thousands of tons in France and Spain, April 30th, May 1st, and May 2nd, April 1870, that carbonized and spread the odor of charred animal matter that was not pollen. Was it the animal debris of one of those aerial battles in interplanetary space? A yellow substance fell at Grace, Calabria, March 14th, 1813. Some of this substance was collected by Professor Semini of Naples. It had an insipid taste and was described as uncutus. When heated, it turned brown, then black, then red. It did not yield to known classifications, and mark the concomitants of this fall of yellow substance. Loud noises were heard in the air, and stones fell from the sky when it descended. Black rain and snow. Black rains and black snows, rains and snows as black as a deluge of ink, fell in Ireland May 14th, 1849, over a district of 400 square miles. Again in April 1887, again October 1907. It left a most peculiar and disagreeable smell in the air. The scientific explanation was that it came from the clouds of soot from the manufacturing towns of England and Wales. But how about the showers of black rain, as black as ink, that fell in Switzerland, January 20th, 1911? And away down at Cape of Good Hope, excuse me as we move pages here, far removed from manufacturing centers in August 1888. Red rains, terrifying rains of blood, as they were called, have been known to occur as far back as the Middle Ages, nay, as far back as Caesar's time, when they drizzled blood upon the Capitol. Red sand dust from the Sahara, the scientists say this is. November 12th and 13th, 1902, it rained red mud, according to the Monthly Weather Review. Millions of tons of it in Tasmania. Several parts of Europe were drenched with the red stuff in February 1903. For several days, the south of England was a dumping ground from somewhere up above. Bloody rains fell, too, in Ireland and Scotland. The scientists still stuck to the Sahara theory, but then, when one of the red rains fell in copious quantities near the coast of Newfoundland in 1890, the editor of the Monthly Weather Review says, "It would be very remarkable if this was Sahara dust. Besides, the Sahara dust is white, not red. And what about that reddish substance, thick, viscous, and putrid, that fell March 17th, 1869, in the town of Châtillon-sur-Seine, and those copious flakes of a substance that looked like beef fell from a clear sky at Olympian Springs, Bath County, Kentucky, March 3rd, 1876. Reported in the Scientific American, Volume 34, page 197, flakes of beef the size of an envelope. What do messengers mean? But there are some real messengers from those interstellar spaces, or else merely explainable by the what goes up must come down theory. A mass of burning sulfur the size of a man's fist fell at Pultusk, Poland, January 30th, 1868, and was stamped out by a crowd of villagers. Science, March 9th, 1888, reports the fall of a solid block of limestone from the clear sky at Middleburg, Florida. A shower of limestone pebbles came down at Pelle Etter, France, June 6, 1890, falling like hail. A large, gritty, smooth, water-worn sandstone cobble reported to have fallen at Little Lever, England, and found in the heart of a beech tree. It looked as if it had fallen red hot and had penetrated the tree at high velocity, reported in Science Gossip, 1887. Another large stone was found in 1855 in the interior of a tree in Bertessa Fields, according to the Philosophical Magazine, 1410-381. At the foot of the tree, fragments were found as if it was broken off the embedded stone. What is there to say except that it fell from somewhere up there and plunged at high velocity into the tree? Who heaved that brick? Many thunderstones. Thunderstones in abundance are recorded. They are called thunderstones in Moravia, Holland, Belgium, France, Cambodia, Sumatra, and Siberia. They are called storm stones in Lusitz, sky arrows in Slovenia, thunder axes in England and Scotland, lightning stones in Spain and Portugal, sky X's in Greece, polished green stones that have wrought by hand, many of them. In Prussia, two of these stone axes were found in the trunks of trees sunk deep under the bark. A cow was killed by what looked like lightning at Guernsey. The peasant who owned the cow, peasant, dug up the earth at the spot and found a smooth greenstone axe. A real round stone cannonball is reported in Knowledge, October 9th, 1885, exhibited at a meeting of the Royal Meteorological Society by C. Carus Wilson. It was a ball of hard ferruginous quartzite, about the size of a coconut, and had come down out of the sky and killed a lot of sheep at Casterton, Westmoreland. Cannonballs and wedges, asked the author of the Book of the Damned. What do they mean, bombardments of this earth? Attempts to communicate? And here are some of the things that look like real messages. Pyramidal shaped stones out of the sky are reported by the British Association. One at Tipperary, near Cashel, August 2nd, 1865. Another at Segowoli, India, March 6th, 1853. The rounded edges of the pyramid are sharply marked by lines on the dark black crust as if by a ruler, says Dr. Houghton. In the Scientific American, September 10th, 1910, Charles F. Holder gives an account of a strange stone that fell into the valley of the Yaqui, Mexico, and upon the stone were found inscriptions, a circle within a circle, dots and dashes. Blocks of ice are favorite missiles of bombardment, a foot in circumference at Derbyshire, England, May 12th, 1811. Size of pumpkins at Bangalore, India, May 22nd, 1851. A mass weighing 80 pounds was chucked down by some Empyrean iceman from the sky near Salina, Kansas, August 1882, and a huge block as big as an elephant was reported from Seringapatam, India. Super Zeppelin. Evidence as of venturing airship visitors from other worlds seems abundant. In 1859, Dr. Lescarbot, an amateur astronomer of Orgères, France, announced that March 22nd he had seen a strange body of planetary size cross the sun. He wrote to Leverrier, the astronomer, who hastened to Orgères and satisfied himself as to the substantial accuracy of the reported observation. Here's a super Zeppelin from interplanetary spaces, according to the annual register. M. D. Rostand, August 9th, 1762. Taking altitudes of the sun at Basel, France, saw a vast spindle shaped body, about 3 of the sun's digits in breadth and 9 in length, advancing slowly across the disk of the sun, at no more than half the velocity with which the ordinary sunspots move. A moving light across the moon is reported in Philosophical Transactions 1884, page 429, which looked like a star passing over the moon, but which, on a moment's consideration, I knew to be impossible. Science, July 31st, 1896, contains a report by Brooks, director of the Smith's Observatory, that he had seen a dark, round object pass slowly across the moon in a horizontal direction. The Dutch astronomer Muley stated in the Scientific American that April 4th, 1892, he had seen a similar phenomenon. A communication from Dr. F. B. Harris in Popular Astronomy said that the evening of January 27, 1912, he had seen an intensely black object that resembled a crow posed as near as anything across the moon. He estimated it to be 200 miles long and 50 miles wide. I cannot but think a very interesting and curious phenomenon happened, he says. Log of Lady of Lake. The Journal of the Royal Meteorological Society gives the following extract from the log of the bark Lady of the Lake. Captain Banner and the sailors reported they saw a remarkable cloud-like structure in the sky, latitude 547 north, longitude 2752 west. It was of circular form, with an included semicircle divided into 4 parts. The central dividing shaft beginning at the circle and extending far outward. Unlike a cloud, it kept its form, and the thing traveled about 20 degrees above the horizon, settling towards the northwest. It was visible half an hour and then disappeared, not disintegrated like a cloud, but became lost to sight in the evening darkness. Hundreds of authenticated phenomenon such as these are cited with book and page in this curious Book of the Damned. The power that says these things are to be excluded, damned, is dogmatic science, says its author. But someday the excluded may be the excluding. Oh, love that one. Love how it ends. But yeah, let's go take a gander at the actual PDF of this book real quick, and just kind of I'll just highlight a few things, and maybe one day, if you're interested, I'll do a full video on it. It's quite a lengthy book, but yeah, let's dive. So as I stated, this book is quite lengthy, but man, these reports are just absolutely incredible, and they, like I said, there are so many. It's remarkable. Um, So, in the interest of keeping it rather short, I'm just going to read some here about frogs, and maybe we'll get into a little more of the other animals that have fallen from the sky. But I'm sure a lot of people have heard these stories before. I certainly did. There was a book that I had as a kid about frogs falling from the sky, and that um, this girl had witnessed it, and everyone told her that she was crazy and blah blah blah. But then it happened over the entire town. So yeah, I'll just read a little short excerpt here. As I stated before, Charles Fort, Book of the Damned, incredibly interesting um, eyewitness accounts with his own kind of contextual responses to them, and how science dismisses these events. The living things that have come down to this earth attempts to preserve this system. The small frogs and toads, for instance, never have fallen from the sky, but were, quote, on the ground in the first place, quote, end of quote, or that there have been such falls, quote, upon from one place in a whirlwind and down another, end of quote. Were there some especially froggy place near Europe, as there is an especially sandy place? The scientific explanation would, of course, be that all small frogs falling from the sky in Europe come from the center of froggerty. As you can see, he mixes a bit of his own, uh, contempt, humor towards the scientific community and the way these things are dismissed. To start with, I'd like to emphasize something that I am permitted to see because I am still primitive or intelligent or in a state of maladjustment. That there is not one report findable of a fall of tadpoles from the sky, as to, quote, there is in the first place, end of quote. See Leisure Hours 3779 for accounts of small frogs or toads said to have been seen to fall from the sky. The writer says that all observers were mistaken, that the frogs or toads must have fallen from trees or other places overhead. Tremendous number of little toads, 1 or 2 months old, that were seen to fall from a great thick cloud that appeared suddenly in a sky that was cloudless, August 1804, near Toulouse, France, according to a letter from Professor Pontus to M. Arago. Many instances of frogs that were seen to fall from the sky, accounts of such falls signed by witnesses. Scientific American, July 12, 1873. A shower of frogs which darkened the air and covered the ground for a long distance is reported the result of a recent rainstorm at Kansas City, Missouri. As to having been there in the first place, little frogs found in London after a heavy storm, July 30th, 1838. Little toads found in a desert after a rainfall. To start with, I do not deny positively the conventional explanation of up and down. I think that there are many have been such occurrences. I omit many notes that I have upon indistinguishables. In London Times, July 4th, 1883, there is an account of a shower of twigs and leaves and tiny toads in a storm upon the slopes of the Apennines. These may have been the ejectamental of a whirlwind. I add, however, that I have notes upon two other falls of tiny toads in 1883, one in France and one in Tahiti, also of fish in Scotland. But in one phenomenon of the Apennines, the mixture seems to be the typical of the products of a whirlwind. The other instances seem to me to be the typical of something like migration. Their great numbers and their homogeneity over and over in these annals of the damned occurs that the datum of segregation, but a whirlwind is thought of a condition of chaos, quasi chaos, not final negativeness, of course. Again, it gets a little, um, his style of writing is quite interesting. So it can be kind of hard to follow. But monthly weather review, July 1881. A small pond in the track of a cloud was sucked dry, the water being carried over to the adjoining fields together with a large quantity of soft mud, which was scattered over the ground for a half a mile. It is easy to say that small frogs that have fallen from the sky have been scooped up by a whirlwind, but here are the circumstances of a scoop. In the exclusionist imagination, there is no regard for mud, debris from the bottom of a pond, floating vegetation, loose things from the shores, but a precise picketing out of frogs only. Of all instances, I have that attribute to the fall of small frogs or toads to whirlwinds. Only one definitively identifies or places the whirlwind also, as has been said before. A pond going up would be quite as interesting as frogs coming down. Whirlwinds we read over and over, but where and what whirlwind? It seems to me that anybody who had lost a pond would be heard from. Simmons Meteorological Magazine. A fall of small frogs near Birmingham, England, July 30th, 1892, is attributed to a specific whirlwind, but not a word as to any special pond that had contributed. And something that strikes my attention here is that these frogs are described as almost white. I'm afraid there is no escape for us. We shall have to give to civilization upon this earth some new worlds, places with white frogs in them. Upon several occasions, we have had data of unknown things that have fallen from somewhere. But something not to be overlooked is that if living things have landed alive upon this earth, in spite of all we think we know of the accelerative velocity of falling bodies and have propagated why the exotic becomes the indigenous, or from the strangest of places we'd expect the familiar, or if hosts of living frogs have come here from somewhere else, every living thing upon this earth may ancestrally have come from somewhere else. I love that. We're gonna end there. If you like this material, I mean, he writes about UFOs and all kinds of crazy objects crossing the moon, and it's incredible. If you want to look into it on your own, again, I'll include a link to this. Excuse me. I'll include a link to this little web page. You can also find PDFs of it online if you so choose. Let me know in the comments what you think. If you want me to dive a little further and read some more of my favorites from this, I picked 6 or 7, but I wanted to keep this article below 30 minutes, or this video. So yeah, again, thanks for joining me. I hope you appreciated the interesting little summary that this author put together from many of the reports from that book, but there are thousands. Yeah. So yeah, um, as always, I appreciate you guys very much. Have a wonderful day. Bye.